I was Drew's older brother. I've been in the fire service for 12 years. I've worked for the city of Crestview, based out of where we're at. So, not quite the military, but a lot of similarities with the brotherhood and some of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I'll be able to kind of share a little bit about how that relates to what I've had to deal with. And
I'm Craig Winkler. I'm the young one, but I work in the juvenile justice system basically. I'll give my perspective kind of basically on like how I handle my stress and anxiety, even though I deal with kids from 12 to 20, 21, before hopefully helping them before they go into jail to get them back on the better path. So I deal with a wide variety of individuals on a daily basis. So I can give a little aspect on that, and it's stressful, so you got to be able to maintain yourself. After coming back from the military, it was definitely more reclusive, more hermit crab aspect. Didn't want to leave much. If it was, like, it takes maybe 10, 15 minutes to get out either side of our city from where he lived. That was maybe the bubble that he felt comfortable in. Anything outside of that, kind of like what the doctor said, take a Xanax and drive, which isn't very smart, but that was the solution that they had for him. So before military, definitely funny. Shoot, he was the one that he put an electric dog collar fence on his neck because he didn't want the convict to have it on him before knowing what it felt like. So there's a video out there of him running across the invisible barrier getting shocked by a dog collar.
On YouTube.
Yeah, like he was just the fun one. He wanted to go out and do stuff. The light, so to say, but afterwards, definitely much dimmer and reclusive.
Yeah, Drew and I were a little bit closer in age, about almost 2 years apart, but, being military kids, everywhere we lived, we typically shared the same room together, and Drew was always really intelligent. He had a comical outlook on life. He was always funny, very outgoing, and he was very friendly. I mean, it didn't matter what kind of person somebody was. He even ended up becoming friends with people that had slided against him, if you wanted to call it. They had done wrong to him. He always saw the positives in people and was able to get this unique capability of making that a good characteristic as far as, I think I explained it, but it was a good characteristic that he possessed, that he was able to take a lot of negatives and make them positives. And then when he came back to the military, I don't think he quite was able to do that as much. His outlook was much darker. He had a much more negative impact or outlook on the military. His outlook on our country, I think, had changed based on some things that he had said had happened to him when he was deployed. And it was just, he wasn't the same person. And that's really the best way to describe it. He just wasn't the same person that he was before he joined the military. And it was evident to everybody.
My brother, we were in townhomes, so I could walk off my porch and be looking at his front door. And it really sucked because when I woke up and I had a text that just said, "I love you," and then the post on Facebook, I knew, being a military kid, what that statement is referring to. So you got a flip of a coin of what's going to happen. So I knew I was either going to walk out front and find my brother or in his house, or what I ended up having to do, drive 10 minutes across town. And when I pulled up, I found him in the car. It definitely wasn't easy. I did go to counseling. I will say that it's one of those people say counseling. Everyone tells you to go to counseling, but then everybody looks at you like, "Oh, you went to counseling?" And honestly, it helps. I got to talk to a third party that knew absolutely nothing about me. They weren't judging me, and I got to get things off my chest, good or bad, and I wasn't judged. It was definitely stressful. There's still things I'm working on, obviously. That's like come the anniversary, like this year, I took that week off of work because just a high stress job. I don't want to be put in that situation to where I might do something that I'll regret just because of anxiety and depression and everything. So I take the time to kind of try to keep my mental health acceptable. Unfortunately, it's one of those things I'm going to have to live with. If we were in a more private situation, I could tell you the story and you would know every little detail and be able, I've got to work.
If the impact's not as direct, I think it's going to have more of an impact down the road as this stuff, I guess, manifests itself. My role in the fire department right now is more on an administrative side, but I still go to calls from time to time where somebody's, they either hung themselves from a tree or it could have been death by gun. The biggest thing that impacted me was when I was still, my job at the fire as a firefighter at the time was still riding the fire truck, and I was coming off duty the morning that he took his own life, and I was able to go home. I was in the shower. My wife had gotten a phone call from my mom saying, "Hey, you need to tell Corey he needs to get out of the shower. He needs to come over to our house because Drew's just taken his own life." And of course, in that moment, there's a lot of confusion, frustration, really more shock than anything else. And the biggest impact that it had on me directly as a firefighter was because my parents live in the same town of the fire department that I serve. The guys that I've worked with for 10 years or more were there. So they actually saw my brother. And of course, I don't want to say, embarrassed. It wasn't embarrassed. It was more like, I didn't want them to look at my family in a wrong way or a different way. I didn't want them to feel bad for us or anything because, you don't want to feel weak and they were there and supportive through the whole thing. But I think that was the biggest impact for me as a firefighter is it happened to me coming off duty. The guys that I knew were there, and, of course, time has gone on. So not saying people have forgotten, but there's been a lot of different people in the fire department now that weren't there when that happened. So, I cope with it. I think that to answer your question, that's been the biggest impact for me on the fire department side.